and you're listening to the Monsters with Attitude podcast. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, embrace the attitude! Yeah!
Hi, this is Alan Henry. I play King Kong and Sky King in the Monsterverse, and you're listening to the Monsters with Attitude podcast. So, like, comment, and subscribe, and remember, embrace the attitude, yeah!
Hi there, I'm David Fielding, and I played the original Zordon in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Alpha, Rita and Lord Zed have returned. Their attack on Angel Grove is imminent. We must summon the greatest fighting force the world has ever seen. Call the Monsters with Attitude. The only way to defeat them is by subscribing to all their social medias. May the power protect you. And if all else fails, embrace the attitude.
What's going on, listeners with Attitude? As always, I am your hostess with the mostest. I am the one that is married to Kaiju. I am Joe, and joined with me today is my brother from another mother. He is the Puerto Rican persuasion. He is the Latin fever from Havana Nights himself, the Don, Jordan Adorno. How are you, buddy?
What is going on, my brother? Listen, it is, oh my goodness. I'm in a whole nother world right now. Between me and you, we are huge fans of this specific franchise we're going to be digging in. So I cannot wait.
Yes. As everybody knows that watches, we're huge fans of Godzilla, huge fans of Tokusatsu, but one of our Jordan and I's other specific interest and fandom is Digimon. So when this, I guess you can kind of say re-release, but really it's the first release in over, I don't want to say, I guess it is a re-release, right? Because it was on DVD, but it's the first time on Blu-ray, and there's so many different features and awesome things that we'll get into. But it's just, it's mind-blowing. And then I saw, I should say, on Twitter that there was a voice actor that is playing one of our favorite DigiDestined, Joe Kido, and it is none other than new friend of the show, Eli Farmer. How are you, sir? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here. Feel good. Feel great.
Thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on. We're excited to talk with you and kind of pick your brain and get to know you a little bit. So I want to start how we do with all of our shows. Kind of relax. Just, did you grow up a fan of Godzilla, Toku, anything like that?
Oh, I don't know about maybe a fan of Godzilla specifically. I was familiar, obviously, and grew up in the Power Rangers era, Mighty Morphin, so Monster of the Week. So I would say definitely in that sort of realm. But no, I wouldn't say I was like Godzilla is my guy. But I definitely was familiar with the franchise for sure.
Okay. But Power Rangers, I mean, everybody knows who Power Rangers is. You know, that's that was what, in the mid 90s, early 90s, whatever it was.
The 90s, forever ago.
Biggest show in the world. Yeah, I know, forever ago. I know. My birthday's next Sunday, so trust me, I'm feeling old. I'm feeling old. So
good deal.
Joe is still a spring flower to us, so no worries. So I mean, I would assume that your favorite Toku property, since that's all within the same realm between Power Rangers and Godzilla, was Power Rangers, or was it a specific Power Ranger series that you were more of a fan of, or was it just Mighty Morphin?
Ooh, gosh, that's tough, because I mean, I watched Power Rangers religiously, probably all the way up until, I mean, maybe SPD was the last one that I
okay. Look at you.
Like without missing an episode, and then it was smatterings throughout there. But I mean, Jungle Fury, Wild Force, Power Rangers in Space, Neo. I was there from beginning to till I kind of aged out of it. But in the demographic when I was there, I was locked in.
Do you have a favorite season?
Oh, I think my favorite season. Oh gosh, Lost Galaxy. That's my favorite season.
Okay, that is I think it gets the recognition, but I also think it's kind of like
under the radar.
Like, it is very, very good. Yeah. Truthfully, it's one of my favorites. It's one of That's probably one of the ones that I have rewatched the most.
Excellent. Yeah, that was the one that I had on VHS. That rewatched all the time.
Wow.
And then probably, Mighty Morphin is right up there. But Lost Galaxy. Oh, and then Lightspeed Rescue, because if anyone who's a Power Rangers fan, you had the video game. And that was like one of the best Power Rangers games that we had for that time period. So Lightspeed Rescue was like, and the Super Train Megazord, I always felt like was such a cool name, like a cool concept. Okay. I had the little track and everything. I was locked in, y'all.
Yes.
That's dope. It's funny because when I got into Power Rangers, right around the time where you said you kind of stopped, it was definitely for me the breaking point was SPD.
Okay.
But I mean, granted, growing up a fan of this genre,
yeah,
I was up to date with a few other things afterwards. But I listen from from both Power Ranger fans to another. It's even more of an honor to have you here with us.
Well, I'm glad that my fandom has paid dividends later down the line.
We're gonna have to park here for a minute. What's your favorite Ranger?
Oh gosh, probably the Titanium Ranger from Lightspeed Rescue.
Okay.
Or the Quantum Ranger from Time Force.
Oh yes.
With the Q. With the Q-Rex.
Yeah, that's like
yes. Are you kidding me? Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, he's awesome. Dan Sutherland or something like that played him, right? Yeah. Seems like a cool guy. That's amazing. So I saw on Twitter when the Digimon movies were announced that it was a huge honor for you because you grew up with these. Do you have some favorite animes that you grew up on? I'm assuming Digimon, obviously, but besides that.
Besides Digimon, well, I was in, like, if you think about being an executive at like Fox Kids or Kids WB, I would have been your perfect demographic. So Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, I was like all in on all those things. I remember Shaolin Showdown. That's not really an anime, it's more of a Western cartoon.
Okay. Yes, I remember that. I love that.
That whole WB morning block, like I was there, did not miss an episode. I never missed an episode of Digimon growing up until probably there was that gap between the 4th season and then Data Squad, because I was kind of just a little too old for it. And then when it went away for 3 years and there wasn't social media then, so you couldn't just get like an update that, a new season of Digimon is out if you weren't watching Fox Kids. And then Fox Kids was also gone by that point in time, so there wasn't like a place to tune in. But besides Pokemon and Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Probably number 3. This is me little. And then Dragon Ball. I mean, I feel like you don't even have to say that, this is like kind of an assumption. And then I would say the first time I remember watching, now mind you, at this point, at that age, I didn't have a concept of like what anime was. The first time that I ever watched something and I was like, this is different from cartoons. I shouldn't have been watching it. I would stay up late and I would watch Yu Yu Hakusho when it would come on Adult Swim. And that was like my first introduction into being like, this is anime. So Yu Yu Hakusho, even though I was like 7 years old, that was probably one of my favorites at the time.
Yu Yu Hakusho is my number 1.
Okay, good deal.
I love it. I feel like they rushed the last season, the Demon World season, which is unfortunate. But Yu Yu Hakusho I love. And I grew up, I think we all did, Jordan, grew up with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu Yu Hakusho, Dragon Ball, all of them. That's fantastic.
That's really neat because I actually watched the episode y'all did with Stephanie Nadaldi, and I thought that was such a cool bit of trivia that she sang the outro for one of the Yu Yu Hakusho seasons. Yes. I had no idea. I was like, that's so cool.
I found out as I was interviewing. I was like, oh, no kidding. Yeah. I know. That's super cool. And she's coming back to voice, I guess, young Goku. And
whoa, that's big news.
Dragon Ball Daima. So so I know that's she was super awesome. She was super nice. And she deserves all the success. As I've only known you for like 10 minutes now, but you seem like a very nice guy too, and I think you deserve all the success that that you're having now and that you're about to have.
I appreciate it, y'all. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
it's funny because one of our other moderators, me and Joe know for a fact he's watching. He's another huge fan of Yu Yu Hakusho and stuff like that.
Okay.
Inuyasha, that's his thing. Those are still, I'm not gonna lie, in our group, or at least specifically mine's and Joe's group, I'm the young buck. So
Okay.
still watching a few of the older ones just so I could be like,
You gotta
hey,
catch up.
yeah. So I mean, with all of what you just mentioned, you seem to have grown up in a pretty cultured world, ranging from anime and other cartoons. So your upbringing was in Virginia Beach, correct?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I live in Texas now. I was born in Texas, so I have two Navy parents. So I was born in Texas, and I want to say it was maybe four or five. We got stationed in Virginia. So even though I was born in Texas, I'm Virginia raised. So I don't claim being like a Texas native, even though I was born here, because I had to leave. Now I'm back. But yeah, so I grew up in Virginia, Navy kid. We grew up in military housing. And so for people who aren't familiar, military housing is basically just like affordable housing that is designed by the military for the military families and their spouses and all that good stuff. So I grew up with kids from like all kinds of backgrounds, all types of ethnicities, all types of worldviews, all types of experiences. So my neighborhood was super diverse. And because you're like on basically a stone's throw away from a military base, it's incredibly safe. And so parents were all about just letting their kids just free roam. And so we all got to like go to each other's houses, and it was the perfect place to like get into Beyblade and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, because you always had someone to play with or to trade with or to do new video games with. And so I got exposed to tons of different things with people in my age group, which was really awesome for me. But yeah, so Virginia Beach is where I grew up. And then after, I want to say 4 or 5 years in military housing, we eventually moved, and then we got a house off base. My dad got out of the military by then. My mom did a full 20 years. But when you have two military parents, one of the things people don't think about is you are only ever going to have one parent at a time, because the other parent is going to be stationed somewhere around the world. And so that's why I got, I think, exposed so much to things maybe before I should have been, like Adult Swim, is because my parents were just not really around the same way that maybe other kids were to supervise. And so I got to just be exposed to a lot of things and watch a lot of things. And the TV, I don't want to say the TV raised me, but I'm also an only child. And so when no one's around and you got nothing to do, what do you do but watch TV? And so I'm so thankful for those animation blocks like Toonami and Maguzi and Fox Kids and Kids WB, because those gave me something to do. Because I'll also say this, as a child, I was not athletic. I had no performing skills. I really wasn't good at anything as a kid. And so if it wasn't for having TV to watch, I probably would have had nothing to consume my free time. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
I love the fact, so I'm an only child as well. And I'm adopted. So like, and
that's beautiful.
So like I found out later on that I had brothers, but I was not raised with brothers once I found my birth parents. But where I grew up was a very small farming town, and I was very far away, like a mile or two from the nearest, kids really.
Yeah.
So kind of like you, like I don't want to say the TV raised me, but there wasn't a lot of kids right by. So all of this stuff, Godzilla, Power Rangers, everything we just mentioned kind of did become almost like, I know it sounds corny, but almost like the friend or whatever, or the mentor or whatever. So I totally understand what you're doing.
Yeah, not corny at all. I 100% co-sign that message, especially now being on the other side of it. And seeing just how much of an impact these stories that we tell through animation affect people. I knew that it affected me personally, but when I was growing up, I thought maybe I was the exception to the rule. But now that I'm on the other side of it, I realize like that's not the case at all. Everyone who is engaged in whether it be anime or video games or any type of thing that we consider like in this nerddom, right? Anyone who's engaged in those things, they have a story that they can tell you about. This thing changed my life. When I played this game, it changed my life. When I saw this show, it changed my life. When I read this comic book, it changed my life. Yep. And it's funny because for years, like throughout all of human history, there's been tons of people who talk about, well, I read this book and ever since then I was a changed man. And we've accepted that as normal. But somehow if it's got pictures, that makes the story like less impactful. You know what I mean? But I think
childish.
Yeah, right. And so now we're finally starting to catch up, and people are recognizing that these are true, genuine, heartfelt stories with love and effort being put into them. So of course they're going to impact people. You know, it's not just like key blast and high speed martial arts, which is awesome, but there's a lot more going on under the surface. And anyone who engages with the medium knows that. So yeah.
I want to highlight one of the comments from our live watchers. It's actually from our buddy Eric, who's another one of our co-hosts here. He says it's not corny at all. A lot of us adopted Zordon as a second father figure. And when we, as I'm sure you saw in our intro, we had David Fielding on.
Yeah, that was neat.
And that's one of the things, you know, just from actually a lot of people that we've talked to is one of the most, I would say common stories is the people that come up to them and tell them, hey, you know, I had a broken family, or my parents weren't around a lot, or I had a really rough upbringing or a traumatic upbringing, but that 30 minutes, you know, once a day was kind of my safety zone, my safe space, if you will. So that's great. And I agree with you 1,000%. Just because books like comic books, graphic novels, just because they have pictures and they're not, you know, 40 chapters long.
The Odyssey.
Like, I'm sorry, but like there's I would put some of the best graphic novels up against some of the best, you know, not like school type novels or whatever, as far as what you can teach and get across. So so you mentioned that you weren't very athletic, but is it true you used to be a wrestler?
This is true, yeah. So I wrestled in high school, and then I went on to wrestle Division I in college.
Oh, nice.
I only wrestled for 3 years, but 2 seasons in college. And then it just really wasn't a good fit with all the things that I had going on in my life, between financials and just the stress of wrestling and my own physical health. So I ended up walking away and not really finishing out the sport. But the 7 years that I put into it really changed me. And so the way that I ended up in wrestling was not necessarily by choice. So I was a I was a freshman in high school. And so one of my lifelong friends, my best friend, Nate, we were playing pickup basketball before PE class started. And we were just shooting around. Mind you, I'm terrible, so I'm just missing every single shot. But we're just killing time. And Nate was on the wrestling team. And so the coach comes out and he sees us playing pickup basketball. And he's like, hey, Nate, why weren't you at preseason conditioning the other day? And Nate was like, oh, you know, I had like something going on, da 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 da. And I was like, ooh, like Nate's in trouble. And then he looks at me and he's like, why weren't you at preseason conditioning yesterday? And I was like, I don't wrestle. And he was like, how do you know you don't do something if you've never tried it? And I was like, that doesn't make sense. And he was like, practice, 3 o'clock, see you there. And I was terrified. I was so scared of him that I didn't feel like I could say no. And so I showed up at 3 o'clock for my first wrestling practice. I had no wrestling shoes. I had never wrestled a day in my life. And I got put in a pretzel and bounced off the mat and got my face drug around. And I was just so scared to leave that I just kept coming back every single day. And then after about 2 or 3 months, I was like, I kind of like this now. You know, it's just part of my routine. And I was horrible my freshman year. I had an astounding record of 0 wins and 31 losses. And then my sophomore year, the guy who was starting at my weight class had graduated. So like, you're going to start now. And I was like, I suck. I should not be starting on varsity. He was like, well, we got to fill the spot. So you're out there. And so my sophomore year wasn't much better, but I actually did win some matches my sophomore year. And then going into my junior year, got a little bit better. And then that's when things really changed. So I'm 30 now, but at the time I was always a year behind everyone, like in my grade level in terms of age. And so I was like a late bloomer. So while everyone else was hitting puberty, like I didn't start growing armpit hair until I was like 19 years old. So I was like way behind everyone else in terms of my physical development. So it wasn't until my junior going to my senior year that my body started to like fill out and I started exercising, and then boom, record totally flips the other direction. I ended up being ranked 3rd in the state for most of the year. I ended up finishing as a state alternate. Then I won 2 matches at senior nationals that year. And then people were like, whoa, this guy's like actually pretty decent. So I had some offers to wrestle at smaller schools, but I didn't really want to pursue that because I was like, well, I'm not that good. So I wasn't going to wrestle in college. Then I ended up going to Appalachian State, which is in North Carolina. People might be familiar with the football program. Huge upset over Michigan. That's like a huge, like, biggest college upset in football history. But anyway, So I go to App State. I'm like, I'm not wrestling. And basically the exact same thing happens to me twice now in college. My buddy Zach and I, we went to college together, and the coach is Zach's wrestling, and the coach is like, hey, how good was your friend Eli when he was in high school? And he's like, oh, he was all right. Like he's pretty good. But Zach knew I didn't want to wrestle. He was trying to like downplay it. And so the coach was like, I want to meet with him. So then I end up in this coach's office and we have this conversation. He's like, Eli, I think, with your build and your dedication, your athleticism, I think you'd be a fantastic addition to our program here at Appalachian. I'd love to have you, walk onto the team, and let's see what you got. Let's see if you got what it takes to be a member of the Mountaineers. And so then I go out and I wrestle, and I made the team and I didn't get cut. And so, so pretty much both instances of me being an athlete was just because someone roped me into it.
I love it. I love it.
That's Eli. Listen, as me and Joe, outside of amateur wrestling, we're huge fans of professional wrestling.
Okay, good deal.
So obviously, within specific individuals that to this day are still heavy into professional wrestling, or now very well-known professional wrestlers down in the Hall of Fame. Most of their backgrounds come from amateur wrestling. So I just thought that was interesting that you were doing that, and that's why we had to throw it up there. We're like, we got to talk to him about this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man.
Kurt Angle, for all we know.
Shout out Kurt Angle.
Hey, yes, Eli's like the Kurt Angle Brock Lesnar, man. He started off as like a loser, and then all of a sudden became this state champ guy.
The next big thing.
Yeah. Which actually, Eric is asking here if you are a fan of professional wrestling.
So I don't currently watch professional wrestling, but when I was younger, I did. My dad was a huge fan. He was in the Ultimate Warrior, the Road Warriors. He was the Hulk Hogan, like the Iron Sheik. That was all his era. So he kind of brought me into it. So when I was a kid, it was Stone Cold Steve Austin was my favorite. And then The Rock. I had the SmackDown 2001 PS1 game. We'd play that all the time. So I was into professional wrestling when I was younger, but then as I got older, I didn't really have the same, I guess, like love for it, or the same time for it, rather, I should say. I'm always a fan. And one of my close college teammates, he actually was in NXT for a little bit. And I really was hoping that he was going to go to the WWE, but we never made that crossover. But yeah, he's fantastic. His name's Denzel Dejournette, wrestled at App State. He's an All-American, but yeah, he wrestled at NXT. So that's my guy, Denzel.
Good for him.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Good for him.
Yes. Now that we got a little bit of that out of the way, you mentioned that you currently live in Texas.
I do, yeah.
So the jump from Virginia to going to Texas for you specifically, was it to pursue a career in voice acting? And just overall, we just want to know, why voice acting?
Yeah. So I wish I could say that it was like some practical reason why I came to Texas. So I mentioned before how I was born here. So growing up as a kid, I mentioned I had the two Navy parents, but I didn't have like a connection to like cousins. I didn't have any living grandparents at the time that I knew of. And we didn't really have like a lot of like family history or lineage. And so I remember when I was in like third grade, we had to do this report on like your family history. And so people are writing about like how they're, Italian or Spanish or Scottish or X, Y, and Z, this, that, or the other. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about my family history. The only thing I know is that I was born in Texas. And so I did my whole report on like the history of Texas. So I did like 100 fun facts about the state of Texas. And so that's pretty much all I had to cling on to, was that I was born in Texas. And so I remember I told my mom, I said, like, when I grow up, I'm going to like move back to Texas so that I can have some connection to something, because that's really all that I have as far as like what makes me me. And she was like, okay, like, good luck. And so then after I graduated college, I worked as an admissions counselor for 1 year at App State. And and so that actually was kind of ties into the voice acting thing. So I was on the road all the time, going to different schools, trying to recruit kids to come to App State, and I was doing this, like, I don't want to say like song and dance, but I was doing the spiel, I was selling, I was trying to get people to come, but authentically, I wasn't, selling them a false dream, but I wanted them to come to App. And I have so many people tell me, like, you have fantastic energy. Like, I love talking to you. Like, you make like me want to go to college. Like that's what the parents would tell me. Like, you make me want to go back to school. And they're like, you really need to like find something. You need to find something to do with all this. But I realized that I hated driving. And so I was like, I need a job where I can use my voice, I can bring the energy, and I can just be in one place. And that's kind of where voice acting, I started looking into it, and I started to learn more about who are these voices behind the video games that I grew up with and the TV shows that I grew up with. Who are these people, and what do they do? And what is the craft? And at that point, it was kind of like a pie in the sky. Like, I don't know if I can really do that. I don't know if it's actually possible. But it was kicking around the brain. And so then when I left North Carolina, so I was Virginia, North Carolina, back to Virginia, then Texas. So after I left North Carolina, I was at home in Virginia for maybe like a month or two, just to see my parents, get my stuff together. Then I moved down to Texas. Mind you, this voice acting idea is like kicking around in the head, but I was like, I need to get like a real job with sustainability and benefits. And so I was working at the University of Texas at Dallas. And so while I was there, I'm still kind of flirting with this voice acting idea. And so I'm doing my research. And then I realized that Funimation, which is now Crunchyroll, I realized that Funimation is 45 minutes from where I work. And I was like, I wonder if they like just let people do tours. They don't anymore. It's not as easy as it was then. But I shot an email and I was like, hey, do y'all do that? And she was like, yes, we do. We do very like small groups. And so I got put on a tour group and I got to tour Funimation, and I actually got to meet the president of the company, Gin Fukunaga. And if you all, I don't know if y'all are familiar with that name, but Gin Fukunaga is the person who brought Dragon Ball to America. And so I got to meet Gin. He told us the story and it was really inspirational. And I was like, this is really cool. So we're walking around Funimation and I saw some voice actors performing, and then there was an empty booth and they were like, hey, do any of y'all want to just like step in the booth and just like take pictures and see what it's like? So I'm standing in there and I'm like, this is what I need to do. I have to do this now. And so then I went home that night and I was like, how to be a voice actor. And so there was a Facebook group. It was called the Dallas Voice Actors Meetup Group. I don't think it even exists anymore. But I posted in the group and I was like, hey, y'all, I want to be a voice actor. Where do I get a character demo made so I can like show my skills? It's funny saying that out loud now because that's definitely like not what you should do first. But I was like, how do I like get a character demo and show my skills? And this really great guy, his name's Cliff Zellman. He's kind of, his moniker is the Automotive King. So if you ever hear like any of those like big truck commercials and car commercials, he's the guy that produces and makes all of those. So he's like big in the automotive voiceover space. And so Cliff was in charge of this group. He sees my message and he's like, I don't recognize this guy's name. I've never heard of this guy. He's like, hey man, just wanted to check, do you have like any acting experience whatsoever? And I was like, nope. I just want to be a voice actor. And he was like, okay, let me save you from yourself, basically. He's like, you're going to need some training. You're going to need this. You're going to need that. He's like, it's not just like making silly voices in a closet. Like you are going to be competing with the best of the best if you want to do the things that you say that you want to do. So he takes me out to lunch. He gives me the whole breakdown. And during our conversation, I was like, thank you so much for giving me all this information and connecting me and like just, again, saving me from myself, making a dumb mistake. And he's like, all I ask is that you pay it forward someday. And so now whenever someone asks me about how do I become a voice actor, I lay out the exact same like method and classes and things that I went through because I try to pay it forward because someone did that for me. So anyway, so he gives me this information. I start doing my training. I did voiceover classes through the Global Voice Acting Academy. That's the foundation of my training. That's where I learned everything about acting, about voiceover. Those are the tools that I utilize to this day to book and to work and do all those other amazing things. So I finished my training with GVA over the course of about 2 years. Then I got my first character demo made. Then I got my first commercial demo made. Then I got signed with my first agent. And then that wasn't necessarily the greatest fit for me, but it was a good learning experience because now I got to audition for real projects and see like, okay, this is where I need to fill in the gap to compete at this level. Then I got my second agent, which is who I'm still with now, which is Tada VoiceWorks, which is based out of Canada. And they've been fantastic and I love them and they're so wonderful. And we have such a great working relationship. And ever since I've been with Tada, it's been like off to the races. So yeah, that's kind of my story.
That's wonderful. I love that. I love that you just kind of took that ambition. You drove down yourself, and you're like, screw it. I'm going to Funimation. Like, you're like, I don't give a shit what they say. I'm going there and I'm asking them for an interview.
Yeah, worst they can say is no, right?
Literally.
So what was your first like big gig or like first like paid gig? What was that like? Getting or auditioning?
So I auditioned for pretty much a year with my first agency and didn't book anything. I booked 0 things, no jobs, nothing. And so I was like, am I really cut out for this? Like, do I actually just suck at voice acting? But as you may have already heard talking to other voice actors, like we don't book at a crazy high rate. You know, you might book 1 out of every 100 or 200 things. So I was right at that kind of first bumper mark. So when I got with my second agent, I had kind of this renewed confidence. I really wanted to like take the things that I learned and apply them. And my second agent, Tanya, she was like, I really want you to hone in on your commercial reads and sort of try to develop this like warm dad. She's like, because you have this energy, but I need you to just take it down a little bit for commercials. And if you can really hone that in, I think you'll find some real success. And the first job I ever booked was for Coca-Cola. So I did a commercial for a partnership between Coca-Cola and MGM Grand. And so I was like, all right, well, I think I don't suck. I think there might be some real potential here. So that was the first commercial job that I booked. And then I continued to book commercial jobs. I did the voice for Gardasil 9, which is the vaccine for human papillomavirus. And my big like ongoing commercial thing that I do is I'm the voice of the Bank of Montreal. So I don't know if you all are familiar with the actor. His name is Lamorne Morris. He actually just won an Emmy yesterday. He played Winston in New Girl, if you've ever seen that show. But anyway.
Oh my God. It's my fiance.
Okay.
I'm a huge fan of that. Oh.
Okay, so then she'll probably know. So Lamorne Morris is an incredibly talented actor. He does basically all of the on-camera stuff for BMO. And they're like, we want a guy to do the radio stuff, to do the audio stuff. And so I got picked to be that. So I'm the voice of a lot of the BMO spots that people will hear. People might not be familiar with the Bank of Montreal specifically unless you live in Canada, but they actually own a bunch of branches of banks here in the United States. So your bank might actually be owned by BMO. Fun fact. But anyway, so that's a really great ongoing commercial client that I have that I work with, and they've just been so wonderful and so great. And then as far as the character stuff goes, the first thing that I ever booked was a role on a show called Dragon Goes House Hunting. And I played a character. His name was Daniel. He was a kobold, which is like not like a werewolf, but like a little dog-ish kind of person thing. So when I booked that part for Daniel, that was the first anime thing I had ever done. I had never dubbed anything before. So I booked the part, and my director, this is also during COVID, so it's all remote. So our director, Alexis Tipton, we go into the session and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to work with you. You're going to do great. This will be a good session. And she's like, and I wanted to say, I didn't recognize your name before. So I wanted to ask, like, what's your background with dubbing? And I was like, well, this is my first time. And she was like, oh, goody. So she basically taught me on the job how to do my job. And so the first time that anyone ever heard me was the first time that I was actually doing it. I didn't have any like background practice. And so then from there, that's actually how I would say I started working with Sound Cadence. Sound Cadence recorded that show for Crunchyroll or for Funimation at the time. So that was my first foray with Sound Cadence. And I had gotten onto the Sound Cadence roster from an open casting call with Marissa Linty, who you all may or may not know is the director for these new Digimon movies. And so I had gotten on with Marissa onto Sound Cadence, did my first spot with Sound Cadence, or my first project with Sound Cadence. And then I worked with them, here and there sporadically. And that's how I was on their roster. So then when the opportunity came up for Digimon and they sent out the auditions, I was on that list. So that's how I ended up getting the opportunity to even audition for the project, because I was already working with Sound Cadence, which was really awesome.
I'm sorry, Jordan. I know you had a question, but I got to ask real quick. How long have you been a voice actor?
I have been I say a professional. I say I've been a voice actor for 4 years. 2020 is when I got my demos out and started marketing myself. I started training in 2018, but I don't consider those first 2 years of working because I was just practicing behind the scenes. I was just.
And you said you're 30.
Yeah, I'm 30.
Wow. Okay. Good for you. That's amazing. I think you've done very well in the 4 short years. That's
I've been fortunate. I've been very fortunate.
Yes. Sorry, Jordan. Go ahead.
No problem, Joe. It's crazy you mentioned Dragon Goes house hunting, because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about.
Okay.
But since you brought up, obviously partaking in this new role for Joe and the audition, can you tell us what the audition process was like specifically?
Yeah, so it was pretty standard to what most voice actors will tell you the process is like nowadays. So they sent out the sides, and they're like, "This is what we're looking for." And so I see the auditions, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know if I can do a Joe voice, because I'd never done it. As a kid, everyone wants to be Ty, when you're a kid, because you want to be the cool one, you want to be the leader, you want to have goggles. So I had practiced being Ty and Davis and Takato. I had never done a Joe voice, but I knew it. Like, I knew it like the back of my, like, as soon as I heard it, or as soon as I thought of it, I could hear it in my head clear as day. And so I tried it, and I was like, I think that actually sounds kind of good. And so I submitted it, and then I got the email from who did I give it? Oh, from Sound Cadence Casting, and they're just like, Marissa would like to cast you as Joe in this project. And I was like, for real? And so I got up, and I was like sprinting around my house and doing laps, and I called my fiance, and I was like, "Oh my God, babe, you'll never guess what happened." And she was like, "No way." And she was like swerving, like had to pull over. And it was just this really exciting moment for us, because she knows how much Digimon means to me, because
wow,
it's been a series that I've grown up with, and I have a very personal attachment to Digimon. And I talk openly about this, but my parents are no longer together. But when I was younger, even then the relationship was kind of still like already on the rocks. And so one of the last movies that we ever went to go see as a family was Digimon the movie. And it was also the first movie that I ever asked my parents to go see. So it was like very, very foundational and important in my childhood and in my life, because it's a benchmark, it's like a checkpoint. Not only did I love the movie, but it marks a very significant point in my life. And so to be able to work on it all of these years later is just, I feel like I won the lottery 10,000 times over, and anything that happens to me now just feels like bonus points, because this is my dream come true in a lot of ways.
I love that. I love it. I have to ask, totally off the cuff, can I hear your Thai voice?
My Thai voice?
Yeah. Or your Kado voice, or any of them. Yeah.
My Thai voice.
I put you on the spot.
I'm taking my Thai pose. Agumon, we have to save the Digimon. So it's not.
That's not bad at all.
The greatest.
That's not bad at all. Joshua Seth better watch out.
Not.
I'm gonna get this edited, and I'm gonna send it to him and say that you're coming after his job.
Now, mind you, when I said that I impersonated Ty, I did it as a child. I had never done it like as an adult.
Right. No, that was good. I like that. So I'm curious, like when you're in the recording studio or the booth, I'm assuming you'll get direction from the director or producer or whatever, just like in any other film or TV show. Is there a direction that you like to receive, or something that you want to know or need to know about this character? I mean, you knew Joe because you grew up with him. You watched Digimon, but for a character that maybe you didn't know, what do you need? What kind of direction do you need to find the voice of the character?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I don't think I've ever heard anyone ask that. And I watch all the voice acting interviews. That's 10 stars.
We at the Monsters with Attitude we're very well. No, every once in a while we get something right. Broken clock right twice a day.
So let me see here. So for me personally, I don't know that it's necessarily because again, I do a lot of commercial work, and so when it comes to commercials, it's very like finite and pointed about make this word more emphasized, or slow this down, or speed this up. And there's some of that in dubbing, but when it comes to character stuff, I find that I do the best when they're explaining to me the context of the situation. That really helps me the most. Like, why are the people here? What, like, give me my 360. Like, what's going on? And just from that, once I know why they're in the situation, I feel like I'm able to sort of dig into my tool bag and figure out, well, how would I feel if I was in that situation? How would anyone feel if they were in that situation? And so really it's the vibe. That's what I'm looking for the most, I think, is just what is the vibe of the scene right now? I find that helps inform my performance the most, more so than like knowing about like a tragic backstory or that stuff helps, but that's not necessarily, I feel like, what helps me snap into it right away. It's like, what's the vibe of the scene? Is this a happy moment? Is this a sad moment? Is this a jovial moment? Is this, playing for slapstick? Like, what's going on here in this moment? And I find that that's what helps me the most. And also, I've worked with, several different directors, and I love when directors sort of guide you in a way of like low stakes, like when they treat it like it can be a high stakes situation, but they treat it low stakes. They're just like, that was awesome. Let's just try it again. There's nothing more stressful than like if you do your first take and they're like, because then you're sitting there like, oh crap, did I like totally butcher that? You know what I mean? Even if they're unsure about the first take, just that little bit of like, okay, I like the energy. Let's try something different. Just people who keep it light. I find that those are the environments that I do best in. Maybe I'm a soft being.
Yeah. No, I can understand that. I'm known to be brutally blunt, and I have I have a horrible poker face, and when I always say, if you have the cojones to ask me a question, you better have the cojones to accept my answer, because I won't. I'm just not a very good, but on the flip side to that, I'm kind of like you. I am a softie. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why are you talking to me like that? You gotta, respect me a little bit. I'm a delicate flower. So
yeah, gotta cushion it, massage it a little bit.
Right.
That's why I love Joe. In speaking of Joe, pertaining to your character in Digimon, so obviously, the movies that you're portraying Joe in, you're one of the newer actors being introduced to Digimon, with Michael Lindsay, who's no longer with us, the original voice actor for Joe. Did you have to study any of his works to get the role for Joe right? Or if not that, who was your overall hero for voice acting?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So 2 good questions there. So I'll start with the second part. So my overall hero is James Arnold Taylor, voice of Tidus, Final Fantasy X, Ratchet and Clank, Fred Flintstone, Johnny from Johnny. Oh my gosh, Obi-Wan Kenobi. List goes on. James Arnold Taylor's my man, mostly because of Tidus. That was how I got introduced to him. Final Fantasy X, I would say, was one of those games that changed my life, quote unquote. Because when I was a kid, I was really shy. I was really introverted. And so seeing this person who kind of just like went after it and took life by the horns, I was like, I want to be like that guy when I grow up. And so I really tried to emulate a lot of those character traits as I got into my, teens and later on. And I think some of that's now become ingrained in who I am, with, a healthy balance of realism. But as far as getting the voice down and like studying the part of Joe, yeah, absolutely. Everything that Michael Lindsay had ever done, I had watched every interview I could find of him. And conveniently, I had actually just shown my fiance the first 2 seasons of Digimon, probably 2 years prior. So I was really up on it. And then at the time, we were watching Naruto because she'd never seen it. So Michael Lindsay plays Kankuro, the puppet guy in Naruto. So again, his voice was very fresh in my head at the time. So I was fortunate that it just all kind of lined up that way. But in terms of like how much I fixated on it, so I had taken every single line that he had said in Digimon the movie. I clipped it out. I had put it on an MP3, and I had it on my AirPods on repeat for 24 hours straight. I just listened to it the entire day. And mind you, it's not a ton of lines in the original film. So it's, just over and over and over and over. I went to sleep with it in my ears before my session, because I wanted it to be as perfect as I was physically capable of doing, because I know how much it meant to me, and I know how much it was going to mean to the fans, because some people, this might be the first time that they have seen these movies since the original theatrical release. And the last thing that I want to do is butcher someone's childhood. I don't want them to be like, that's not Joe. You know what I mean? Like I don't want them to have that moment. So I took it really seriously, and so I studied not just Michael Lindsay. You know, I studied Robbie Damon as well, who did Joe in Digimon Adventure Try. So, you know, I was doing the Robbie Damon voice. I tried a little bit with that. I even studied the Japanese Joe, you know, trying to emulate that as well and get the mannerisms down. Like what was the line I said over and over again? Eats go mamon. Like I did that over and over. Like I did all of the things. So anything that like Joe had ever said, I had watched it, I had absorbed it and tried to take it into my performance. And then, you know, obviously the Michael Lindsay, which is like the crown jewel of it. That one was the one I spent the most time with. And so then when I went into the session, I was still incredibly nervous because it was Digimon, which was like the most important thing ever to me. But I had this confidence of like, you've done the preparation, you have done the work. They did not hire you for no reason. You have all the tools to succeed if you can just get out of your own way in this moment. And I told myself after I finished the session, I was like, okay, I am not going to do my Joe voice until the movies come out because because I want people's first experience to be in the films. The first time you ever hear it, I want you to watch the movies. And I want you to have this, I want your brain to misfire. That's what I want. I want your brain to misfire. I want you to be watching it and be like, oh, that's just how he's always sounded. And then have to be like, oh, wait a second, that's a new guy. That's what I want for people to have. I don't want there to be any like, that's different. That's my hope with the films.
Well, I think that's one of the great things that I guess Discotech is. So let me back up for a second. Let me ask you a question. So you talked about, did you say Sound Cadence?
Sound Cadence was the studio, that I recorded.
Okay, so they're the studio. Discotech is the company that's releasing.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So that's one of the great things, in my opinion, about this release from Discotech is because we're getting the movies as they were released, 20 some odd years ago. Then we're getting your guys's dub.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're getting the original Japanese. Correct. So it's almost kind of like we're getting 3 sets of, which is fantastic because it's going to give everybody a nice little sampling. So that kind of leads to my next question, which is how did that? You talked about getting the email that you got, Joe. Did you know that Discotech was going to be doing this, and you specifically auditioned for Joe? You said, or
I did.
Was it? Okay, so it wasn't like, hey, we have a super secret project and
No, they came right out with what it was you were auditioning for. I think the reason was because they needed voice matches, you needed to know what it was that you were doing. And I looked through that list and I was like, I don't know if I can do any of these as a match. Also, first, I also didn't know that my brain was really having a hard time comprehending that I was really going to have the chance to audition for Digimon. I was like, is this like a fan project? There's no way, this can't really be real Digimon.
Right.
But then it turned out to be.
Well, I actually, if I'm being honest, I kind of thought the same thing when they released, because they released seasons 1 and 2 on Blu-ray as well. And I was kind of like, is this like a bootleg thing? And I was like, no, this is like a legit thing. And then I saw we're trying to get the rights to the movies. And I'm like, that'd be awesome. Not going to fucking happen. That'd be awesome. And then, of course, typical me having to eat my own words because, and don't get me wrong, I am happy that I'm wrong. And I am thoroughly impressed. I actually bought both the seasons on Blu-ray.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I have my pre-order in for the movies, and
that's what we like to hear.
Discotech has they have proved me wrong and made me a fan, which is good for them. But yeah, I'm sorry, Jordan. I'm cutting you off. And
no problem, Joe. Really quick before I get to my next question, onto gravitating to the character Joe. Eli, from me to you, I have I even have a lot more respect for you as not just an actor, but of a human being who wants to keep that character alive and really study the work that was Michael Lindsay when he did portray Joe. Wanting to get the specific tones down and stuff like that. I know the reason why I bring that up is because I thought about Seth Rogen when he portrayed Donkey Kong in the Mario Bros movie.
Yeah.
And I've heard from multiple people, even watching interviews with Seth when he portrayed Donkey Kong, he just went out there and said it. I don't care what the fans want. You're gonna get Seth Rogen
Mhm.
as Donkey Kong. You're not
Yeah.
gonna get me to play Donkey Kong. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I was just like, and granted, I'm not discrediting his work and what he did with Donkey Kong. It was kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it was
But
fun. It was
still,
in the scene, yeah.
yes. So, but it was still like certain things that I feel like I could have, tweaked it a bit. And mind you, I'm no voice actor to be critiquing his work and stuff like that. But to see just like the heart that you had just pulled out of your chest to really, get into the Joe Kido character just is truly heartfelt, man. And thank you for just, partaking in that role and again being part of now the digital world, I would say.
Thank y'all so much for having me. And I'm so honored that I get to just sit down and talk to people about this thing that I loved anyway. Like even if I hadn't booked the part, like I was never going to not be a Digimon fan. I've been a Digimon fan my whole life. I remember playing Digimon World Dawn in my dorm room when I was in college, like a decade after it came out. I was like one of the first 1,000 people to sign the Operation Decode petition. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. That is the reason why we ended up getting Cyber Sleuth and those sorts of games to come to the stateside. Like I was all about. I've got Joe on my wall here in my office.
Oh yeah,
in the background. Like so, for me, like Digimon has always been a part of my life, and I will always cherish the experiences that I've got to have with it. And yeah, I'm gonna do right by the fans because, like, I feel like I have a fiduciary responsibility. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
Was Joe always your favorite DigiDestined?
No. I wish I would lie. I'd be lying if I said that he was. I was a Tai guy. I always wanted to be Tai. I always thought he was cool. But I will say this, though. Zudomon was my favorite ultimate level Digimon. I thought Zudomon with the hammer, I thought he was the coolest thing walking. Heck yeah, we got some Zudomon representation. Oh, excellent. This is what we like to see.
Absolutely. Oh, listen, Zudomon is a unit.
That's what I'm saying.
I fucking love Zudomon.
And Zudomon is really, I think, the first one in the series. He's the first ultimate to beat. No. That's not true. Second. He's the second ultimate. No. First. He's the first ultimate level Digimon to beat a mega level Digimon. Because with his hammer, he cracks Metal Elmon's chest, which opens up the weakness so that Saber Leomon can take him out, and they have that very emotional scene. So as far as I'm concerned, Zudomon's got like a crazy dub that no other member of the cast had at that point.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I have to agree with you. I think I was a Tai guy, and I'm a huge fan of Agumon and his evolution. But
yeah, it's hard not to be.
Zudomon's pretty badass.
And it's one of those things, like every kid that watched Digimon live, the first time you see War Greymon and Metal Garurumon, that like at that time, like there wasn't crazy 3D animation like that on TV. So your brain is like melting watching this on the screen.
It's like peak cinema looking at it back in the day.
Yeah, I mean now obviously you're like, I mean it still looks cool actually, but I mean then when you like don't have anything to compare it to, it's even wilder. But yeah, so Joe is unfortunate. Joe, sorry, what was the question?
No, please continue.
So Joe was not my favorite character, but I always remember thinking like I could relate to Joe. See, I'm going right now, and I'm starting to slip into my Joe voice as we're talking. I can hear
in there.
I can hear the little bit of it like starting to come from the back of my throat. But yeah, so Joe's not my favorite character, but I always remember being able to relate to Joe. And, now that I'm an adult, I'm like, yeah, the reason why you were able to relate to him, because that's how you would have responded in that situation. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have been the fearless, courageous one. You would have been like, oh my gosh, we're going to die. Someone get me out of here. I need a Band-Aid. I need an adult. Like, yeah.
Jordan, before you do your last couple questions, I got a couple more, just rapid fire spitball, Eli, if that's okay.
Yeah, knock him out.
Favorite villain. Favorite season 1 villain. Let's do that.
Favorite season 1 villain would probably be Machine Dramon. It's gonna be my favorite. Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Oh my gosh, it's like this is staged. This is crazy. What are the chances? Anyone who's watching this, I swear I did not get notes beforehand.
This is all off the cuff. Promise. Yeah. Oh,
That's awesome. Listen,
so
I love Machine Dramon myself.
That's what we like to
For
hear.
me, I would say definitely Mallow Myotis, man.
Oh gosh,
hell
that's so
yes.
good.
He was, I remember watching it live on TV, and after they defeated Myotis, man, I was like, oh,
He's not
what a
finished yet.
and all the souls just
You're
came.
talking Venom Myotismon.
Oh yes.
I was picking up what you were putting down. I was picking it up. I got what you meant.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking season 2. Yeah, no, Venom Myotismon. Yeah, that was like, for me as a kid, I was just like, screw the DigiDestined. We need Godzilla in this shit.
Yeah, he is a kaiju through and through. I don't know if y'all are do trading cards at all, but there's a Venom Myotismon card that came out recently that's like full kaiju. He's like breathing fire, knocking over buildings. And I'm like, I'm so glad that they like played that up, for the card.
No, yes. So really quick, now would you consider, and this leads up to the question that I have for you, Digimon, it was obviously a huge part in our childhood. I would, for me, I'd considered them, while kids in my grade would be, overhyping the casual usual stuff, whether it be Spider-Man, Superman. For me, I was always the oddball because I'm rooting for Godzilla as my hero, and as well as Digimon.
Heck yeah.
So speaking of heroes, I did some research and I found out you did a few roles for My Hero Academia.
Yeah, so I was in an episode of My Hero Academia this past season, episode 144. Oh my gosh, I don't know what kind of time y'all have allotted, but we're going over. We're knocking it over today. So, My Hero Academia was, I would say, sort of like maybe the secondary impetus that got me into voiceover. So at the time when I had first seen it, I was down on my luck bad, y'all. Like, no cash, about to get evicted out of my apartment. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for my next steps. And then I see a trailer for the second season of My Hero Academia, and I can't remember what the show was or what the song was that playing in the background. I don't think it was You Say Run. It might have just been the title song playing in the background. And it caught me, and I watched it, and I was like, okay, I need to watch this show. So I watched the first season and the second season, and just All Might and his relationship with Deku, it really spoke to me because it was a lot like my relationship with my first wrestling coach. Just having this figure who was like pushing you beyond your limits, that believed in you more than maybe you even believed in yourself. Yeah. He saw something in you that you didn't see. He saw potential in you that you didn't see. And it reinvigorated that like spark for life and wanting to go after it. And then boom, we moved to Texas, X, Y, and Z. And so when I came to Texas, I was like, I want to be in My Hero. Like, I want to do this at some point. I want to use my talents to hopefully get a role in the show. But one of the things that present Eli knows that past Eli didn't, is that they don't just let you do the big shows as your first acting role ever. So, I got here, I was like, okay, yeah. So like within the next 3 years, I'll definitely be good enough to like be in My Hero for sure. This was in 2017 before I had any training whatsoever. So I'm thinking 2020, I'm in there. I was not. But I ended up going to a My Hero convention where I met the cast or the actors that play the big three, which are Rico Fajardo, Lindsay Seidel, and Aaron Dismuke. Their characters are Mirio Togata, Amagichi Sun Eater, and then Nejire. What's Nejire's hero name? Anyway, so those three, I got to meet them. And they were also personable and also nice. And Lindsay has been someone who has kind of been like a background mentor to me throughout my career. Whenever I have questions, especially early on, I'd ask her like, hey, do you have like any advice on like things I could do? And she was always so gracious with her time of like, yeah, do this, or maybe try that, or maybe try this, or I think that's a good idea. And so I'll always be so thankful for Lindsay. And so when I got called into this episode of My Hero, it was an episode in which the big three were a part of it. And so I was like, holy crap, you're telling me that I'm going to be in a show, or I'm going to be in My Hero 1, but I'm going to be specifically in an episode with these 3 actors that I have like this very important memory with. Holy crap. I couldn't believe it when I got to go in. And so in that episode, I got to play several of like the background villains that are getting basically butchered by the heroes. And then I also played some of the support staff that are like in Hero HQ that are sort of navigating the big fight scene. I'm trying to talk about this as vaguely as possible for spoilers because it is the most recent season. But yeah, so I got to do some bit parts in My Hero. And that was like a dream come true again for me. So I'm 2 for 2 really in terms of things that I wanted to accomplish, and everything now is bonus points. So I'm not really sad about anything. I get hit by a bus tomorrow and feel pretty content. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but just I want to see the movies first.
Yeah, please don't keep that into existence. Yeah.
Really quick, before I let you go to ask what I'm assuming is your last question, Joe. Just to piggyback off of the My Hero, who's your favorite hero?
Oh, All Might. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? That's like not even. Oh gosh, I don't have my keychain with me. Sorry, I don't have my All Might keychain. All Might used to be. He used to be my screensaver on my phone, but now it's Joe. All Might used to be my screensaver on my phone. I have All Might keychain. I've got My Hero shirt. I almost wore a My Hero shirt today, actually.
Oh man.
Yeah, so My Hero is like heavy in the representation in our house. We got all the All Might Funko Pops.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we're all in on All Might, and I love now that when people ask me, because All Might's not only my favorite hero in the show, he's objectively jumped to my favorite superhero, knocking off Spider-Man to the number 2. So when people ask me who's your favorite superhero, I say All Might, and I love that we live in an era now that people are like, I know who that is.
Yes, that's awesome. He's one of my favorite characters in the show. I'm actually looking at a statue that I have of him.
Oh my gosh. Y'all's collections are just like boundless. It's everything that I love on your show.
Joe is he's the key holder to the museum of collectibles. I tell you that. And this is not even my stuff. This is like the video game room. So we just sporadically throw stuff out there.
Okay, good deal.
My beautiful, illustrious, kind, sweet, caring, just most perfect wife in the entire world. Yes, I say funny and kind, and she is so awesome. She let me have our entire basement of our house, and it's literally just shelves and shelves and shelves of Godzilla and Power Rangers, and then this up here is my office where a lot of my books and Digimon and other things are. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
wow. I had so my birthday was this past Saturday.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. So yeah, recently 30. So my soon-to-be in-laws, they got me a shelf for my birthday. This is a big, tall stand-up shelf, and they're like, "We want you to put all of your future voice acting things on this, because all the things, the figures that you will collect and experiences that you'll have." So yeah, that's going to be really exciting. So I look forward to expanding. I don't know if I'll ever reach basement level, but I'm going to try to fill out as much space as I can.
Listen, we'll be looking forward for that. But I'm sorry, Joe. Go right ahead.
No, please. Do you have one more? Or is that
I got time, y'all. I got time. If they're not bored of me,
I don't think anyone could ever be bored of you. I'm just getting the side eye from the wife. No, so okay, I do have a couple rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
If you said you have time. So we talked about your favorite DigiDestined was Tai.
Mm-hmm.
Your favorite villain for season 1 is Machinedramon. Who overall? What's your favorite evolution line from the DigiDestined?
It's going to be Dorumon, because Dorugoromon is my favorite Digimon of all time. So Dorumon, Dorugreymon, Dorumon, Dorugamon, Dorugraymon, and then Dorugoromon. I'm not as much of a fan of like the Dex versions of them, but like the base forms. I think Dorugoromon is cooler than Alphamon. And see, I love that I can talk like to this extent with you all, and you like know what I'm talking about, because a lot of times actors aren't necessarily like as in depth into the fandom, but I am. I like when it comes to Digimon, I can keep up with the best of them. You know what I mean? So yeah, Dorugoromon's my favorite.
I'm gonna give a hot take, and this is probably controversial, but I actually think Alphamon's a little overrated.
So.
Don't get me wrong, he's cool. He is cool, but I don't know. He's just
I'm kind of a little there with you. If it's between Alphamon and Omnimon, I'm picking Omnimon every time.
Every day of the week, twice on Sunday.
Yeah,
absolutely. So do you play like the cards and stuff too?
I don't play the cards. I've gotten a few of them as collectibles, but video games. Video games are my bread and butter. That's what I do in my free time. I have probably unhealthy amount of hours put into Cyber Sleuth. I love
Cyber Sleuth. That's a great game.
I've 100%ed probably 12 or 15 times. I have I think it's 1,600 hours I've played Cyber Sleuth. It's heavy, y'all. It's heavy with the Digimon love.
I love that. Eli, we are going to have you back on.
Okay.
So I've been talking about this for months, and we're relatively new in this format of interviewing people, so we're getting our legs underneath us still, but we're trudging along.
It's a great start.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. But I want to do, and actually we almost did it this past August, but there was just so much things going on in all of our personal lives. We ran out of time. But I wanted to do a Digimon show, strictly Digimon, where we just talk about all things. And I wanted to do it on Odaiba Day, but again, just our schedules, all of us did not line up. But when we have you back, you are our guest for not even just guest. You are going to be our co-host, so that way you can talk and you can ask questions, and we can just chop it up about all things Digimon in a long format. So
I would love that.
I'm saying that now, but I do have like one or two more rapid questions. So Jordan, the evolution of Tyrannomon, we're totally going in the weeds, but we've been going over an hour. If nobody likes it, they can fast forward. The evolution of Tyrannomon card that you sent me. Do you remember that? What was his name?
Was it Rust Tyrannomon?
No, I love Rust Tyrannomon. It's a brand new one for the card game.
Wait, hold on. Is it? It starts with a D.
It's like Dinomon or something.
Dinomon, the one with the fire, and he's like giant red.
Looks like Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yes, I am all about that. I want a new Digimon Survive, or a Cyber Sleuth, Hacker's Memory Part 2.
Yeah.
With Dino Tyrannomon, whatever it was.
Well, they are working on that third game, so there's always a chance they might slip him in there.
So is that third game, is that a continuation of Cyber Sleuth, or is it a sequel to Survive?
Last I heard, it's going to be in the Digimon Stories of Cyber Sleuth world, not so much in the Survive world. So if you're familiar with the Cyber Sleuth gameplay, from what I've heard, it's going to be more in that sort of realm than the Digimon Survive realm.
I know there were some people that were disappointed with the gameplay of Survive, but I kind of liked it. It was like an interactive novel.
Yeah.
I liked it.
And it's funny you got your hours worth.
About Digimon Survival, or however you pronounce the title for that. I haven't even played that game yet.
It's good. It's very good, Jordan. You'll like it.
All right, because after playing Cyber Sleuth and the sequel to that one, I was just like, yes. I was like, there's no way that any other game could top these specific two. And I was like, just like you, Eli, I was binging night after night. I swear there'd be days where I had to sleep in the couch and sleep in bed alone because I'm playing freaking Cyber Sleuth or Hacker's Memory.
It's just it's like, especially after you do it a couple times, it's almost like when you have friends on, or The Office in the background. You just do it and be talking to someone else. It's just it's so good, so good.
I love it.
Eric, the co-host from earlier, has a question. What do you prefer, Digimon or Pokemon? Now, I feel like that's obviously going to be Digimon, but take yourself out of the fact that you are now a character in Digimon.
Even before, this isn't even a question for me. But I'm a fan of both, I will say. More of a Digimon fan, for sure. I'm a Digimon evangelist. I try to evangelize people with Digimon. But I was right there in the Pokemon days as well. Pokemon cards. I put a ton of hours into Pokemon Heart Golds. Put a ton of hours into Fire Red. Fire Red was my first Game Boy game. Actually, no, that's not true. Pokemon Blue was my first Game Boy game. but that was Fire Red was the first game that I got. Like Blue was someone like gave it to me. Fire Red was the first one I purchased. And I was I was really into X and Y, the 3DS days. I remember I was so into X and Y that like I would rather like play X and Y than like talk to my girlfriend at the time. Like it was really bad. I'm much better now. I have a much better balance between, caring for my love of my life as opposed to playing video games all day.
I love that. All right. I have one last question for you.
Sure.
Do you have any future projects? But most importantly, what are your future goals? Where do you want to be 5, 10, 20 years? Where do you want to be next year?
Oh man, I love this question. Future projects. I'm trying to think. Digimon the movies for everyone that's watching at home. If you haven't pre-ordered, go ahead and pre-order it now.
Yep.
But outside of that, there's nothing that I'm working on that I think I can talk about publicly. So I'm going through the Rolodex here. Yeah, no, nothing. All right, I can speak on. And that's just speaking generally, like commercials, all that stuff. There's nothing I don't think I can talk about. And then as far as goals go, I want to reach the stage in my career, 5, 10, 15, maybe not next year. I don't know if I'll be at the place next year. But my goal for next year, I would say in the immediate future is I want to find even more of the range in my instrument. That is my voice. If you think about your voice like an instrument, I've gotten really good at playing a couple of notes and a few songs, but I know that there's a lot left in here that I'm still finding out because I'm so late to acting. You know what I mean? Like I started acting at 26 years old. So, or 25, 26, somewhere in there. So there's still a lot of like things that I need to learn about this and how I can really utilize it. One of the examples that I'll give you is, so I always thought that I kind of had like a higher voice, like in my brain, that's how it sounds to me. But most directors say I have a mid-range voice, but in my brain, it feels like kind of up. So I never thought of myself as being someone that could do deep voices. I was like, I don't have the capacity to do that. Like that's not in my repertoire. But I got cast in a project, Double Dragon Gaiden Rise of the Dragons, which came out on all platforms. For anyone that's familiar with the Double Dragon side-scroller beat-em-up kind of series, I play a character, his name is Anubis. He's one of the big bads in the game. And he's like all down in like the praise Anubis, like fear me. And I never knew that I had the ability to do that until I got the opportunity to do that project. And so I want to find out what I can do with this thing. And also there's a few things that I know that I can do with it that I haven't gotten to utilize yet. And I want to be able to showcase those abilities because like I feel confident in the capacity that I have, and I really want to showcase that. So that'd be the next year goal. But as we talk 5, 10, I want to get to a place in my career, in my confidence with my ability to act, using my instrument, where I can reach a hand back. That's my long-term goal. Because I know that I would not be in the position that I am in right now without wonderful mentors. And this is even before acting, without wonderful mentors like my coaches, my teachers in school, my parents, my friends' parents, professors in college, and then all of the directors and actors that have helped me along the way. Like it would be so, I feel like, disingenuous of me to be like, I had a great and wonderful life and things shook out well for me, and then not reach a hand back, because none of this happens without the support of others. And I know I had to do the work. I had to put the time in. I had to learn how to do all the things, but it would just be disingenuous to act like there weren't tons of people in the background. So I want to be able to reach a hand back and help out that next generation of actors who are really serious about it, because there's going to be lots of frivolous people that are going to come up to you, at cons or X, Y, and Z or whatever it might be. But the ones that are really serious, the ones that are like little me, 4 years ago, I want to find those people and help them along the way and be in a position where I can help them. So those are my goals.
Eli, you are a gentleman and a scholar. I love that. That's such a great answer. It really is. Most people would be like, "Oh, I want to have more money or a bigger house, or I want to have more whatever," and you're like, "No, I want to be able to be in a position to help people." That's fantastic.
Like I said earlier, y'all, I'm maxed out on goals. If a bus hits me, I'm done. There's not really many more things I can contribute to the world.
Yeah. Well, I disagree with that. I think way more. Not that you haven't done a fantastic job already, but we want you here for a long time. We really do.
Fingers crossed. My fiance would be happy. So
right, yeah, exactly, exactly. Eli, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. We held you for over an hour, and you're amazing. And like I said, we want to have you back. We're going to do a long form Digimon discussion show.
Heck yeah.
If you're interested, we are interested, my friend.
I would love that. And, I would love at that point, if we were able to, I don't know how big you're thinking here, but I would love if we can get some of the other cast members on board, so maybe at that point we'll be able to shake some bushes and get some other people to come join me.
That would be amazing. I would love to do a huge stream. Hell, we could go 2, 3, 4 hours, have people drop in for as long as they want. And, if they want to stay the whole time, that's fantastic. If they want to jump in for 20, 30 minutes, that's great too.
Heck yeah. All right. Yeah. Oh, man, Odaiba Day next year. Woohoo, get excited.
Or, hey, who says we even have to wait that long?
Yeah. That's true.
We could just pretend it's Odaiba Day. Maybe we could do it around the release of the movie.
Okay. Now you're talking promo. Hey.
Yeah.
If you're listening.
Which is a great segue, listeners with attitude, monsters with attitude. If you guys haven't already and you are a fan of Digimon, go to crunchyrollstore.com and pre-order that movie. It's a part of all of our childhoods. Obviously, we all grew up with it, but we want Discotek to do more. There are several other Digimon movies that have never seen a release here, and maybe with the success of this, they will branch off and do many of the others that we have not been able to have here. So, and maybe they'll be able to finish some of the seasons and stuff that have never finished airing here in the States. So it's important to support the official release, I think the tagline.
There we go, Joe. Now we're cooking.
Yeah. Eli, thank you again so much. Any last thing, any places you're gonna be, anything you want to plug before we head out?
Things I want to plug. Well, like I said, pre-order Digimon the movies if you haven't already. I've never done a convention, so I don't do any traveling. But if anything pops up, I'll let y'all know. Yeah, I'd love to do my first one, and then someone could be like, "I got the first new Joe signature." But yeah, so nothing really for me. I would say just like take some time for yourselves, love your people, tell them how much you appreciate them while they're here, and yeah, that's my message. That's what I want y'all to go promote. Go promote loving your family and your close loved ones and all that good stuff.
I love that.
I love that, Eli.
Jordan, any last words before I send us home?
No, other than, again, Eli, thank you for taking the time to be with us here at Monsters with Attitude. And not only that, but be the first person on our show for us, me and Joe, to brag about Digimon.
Yeah, Digimon all the way.
Yes. So again, brother, thank you for being here with us. It truly means a lot. From not only just as fans, but I feel like now we've gotten a much more deeper connection where we're friends.
Yeah, I'm nothing if not available. So whenever I had an opportunity to send messages and respond, like I'm right there. I'm happy to chit chat and direct wherever I can. Like I said, reach that hand back.
Well, Eric is saying that he's going to send you a copy of the Blu-ray for you to sign.
Oh, all right. I got to get a PO box or something set up.
He says he wants to have the first Eli signature.
Okay, there we go.
Well, joke's on you, Eric, because I have his contact info. You don't. So I'm going to be the first signature. All right. With all of that, Jordan, thank you for co-hosting. Eli, thank you so much for being so gracious with your time. Honestly, I'm so excited to have you back with some of your friends. We can all talk about
fingers crossed.
Digimon. And yes, fingers crossed. Monsters with Attitude. Again, go buy that. Go pre-order that movie. It's super important to do so. And until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, embrace the attitude.
Yeah, embrace the attitude.